Well, hello and welcome to the show. It's Tuesday, along with Jesse Stiers, Sean Stiers, Ivy Nation Sports Talk. We're up, we're rolling. We've got plenty of Notre Dame football to talk about today. I have to say, Jess, I did the Lucky Lefty show with Malik and Sean Davis for the first time ever today. And I've listened to the show, as I told them, I've listened to it on Apple Podcasts. I've never actually seen the start of their show. And I just feel like looking at like their start of the show compared to our start of the show, like, we need to up our game a little bit.
Are you saying we need a new intro?
Yeah, we need graphics. There's like, go check out the start of their show sometime.
Okay.
On YouTube. I feel like they're a couple notches ahead of us in the start of show.
They're bringing that enthusiasm early.
They are. It was a good time. Had fun talking to them today. First time I've ever been over there. They've both been on this show before.
It sounds like you had a busy day between practice and shows and transcribing interviews and all kinds of good stuff. I was just tired and cranky all day.
Well, I was tired and cranky too, but I did all that other stuff that you just talked about. So, and I'm still a little cranky right now, like smacking myself, getting myself going. You know, I was playing a little AC/DC to fire myself up right before the show started, getting it rocking, getting the blood flowing a little bit. So I'm counting on you to bring even more juice.
Okay. I've been upset and cranky all day because I stayed up and watched the Cubs game last night.
Ooh.
They were up 8-0 and blew it and lost 9-8, and I had to go to bed really angry. You know what the funniest part was? It was like the fourth or fifth inning. Cubs go up 8-0. Naomi rolls over and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to sleep." And I was like, "Yeah, okay. I'm going to stay up and watch this game." And she said, "Do you really need to stay up? It's an 8-0 game." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll watch it." And that's why you don't turn it off. Like if you're a Padres fan in that situation, imagine turn that off and you wake up in the morning, you just see the barrage of home runs that the Cubs gave up.
So did you even flip back and forth with the basketball game then?
I didn't watch. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not watch 1 second of the national championship. The Cubs game started at the same time.
I watched a little bit of the intros. That was it. So if any of you were up watching it, you're in the minority. And we'll talk about that a little bit in rapid fire because the women outpaced the men this year in terms of viewership, which is amazing. It's amazing. Decaf saying no Vince again, ? Decaf, if you or anyone else wants to see Vince this week, apparently you have to go over to Penn High School and find him over there in the dean's office and see what he's doing over there this week. We are not anticipating Mr. D'Addario checking in this week. I guess it's like a big schedule conflict week for Vince. So Jesse's doing double duty. Vince has got a daytime job. Jesse's got a daytime job. Jesse's checking in. Glad to have him here, as always. Glad to have viewers here, as always. Glad to have listeners here, as always, if you're listening next day, of course, on those podcast platforms. But, and again, we'll get to the basketball stuff and rapid fire. We'll save it for rapid fire because we did get to go to – this is our final partial practice viewing this morning. First 5 periods, they went outside for the first time that we've been over there anyway. All spring, they were outside in the outdoor fields, got to see a little bit of the quarterbacks throwing. We saw some tempo drill and stuff like that. Couple interesting things. Jaden Harrison, the Marshall transfer wide receiver / kick returner, riding the bike and doing some core work and stuff like that. Man, they like those guys who miss practice, they put them through their paces over there with the other stuff, whatever they're
able to do. You're not getting off of practice.
Harder.
Yeah. You're not missing out on anything by having some sort of injury. You are still participating. So was he was in a boot, right?
Yes.
But he was still using it on the bike?
He was on the bike. I can't remember if the boot was on when he was on the bike or not. When we went in, he was on the bike. When we were leaving, he was down on the floor, on the inside doing some planks in there, doing some core work. So
you saw the first 5 periods of practice?
Yes. Yes.
Did you see? Was Max Bulla out there doing drills with the linebackers again?
I was mostly watching what the quarterbacks and the receivers were doing. And I actually, now that I think about it, I shot a little video of them. Excuse me. I was doing so many other things today, including preparing all this Riley Leonard and Steve Angeli audio that we're going to hear on today's show. I think I'll throw some video up tomorrow. So if you come in for the mailbag show tomorrow, I'll have a little bit of video specifically of some of the quarterbacks and receivers and stuff like that from practice.
Nice.
So we'll have a little bit of that. That'll be in store for you.
And then when's the next full practice this weekend?
Saturday. That'll be our final practice viewing before the Blue Gold game. We are scheduled to get a full practice, and rumor has it may even be a scrimmage out there that we get to see.
I've seen some of that more recently, and that's usually a Saturday or Sunday type vibe. When in terms of spring training, like you don't middle of the week is more teaching learning, and then it follows kind of like that format of weekend is it would be a game or a scrimmage, and you actually have officials there, you have a chain gang there, like very loose, like you're not obviously like keeping score, but it's just more competition. It adds to, let's strip down, less walkthrough, more full contact, etc. So
DK said he heard Angeli looks like Joe Burrow. It's funny you say that because I'm not talking about their quarterback play at all, but when I saw Steve Angeli the other day with the helmet off, I was like, man, he's kind of got a little bit of a Joe Burrow type vibe, just looking at the face and the hair and
so
that whole
not
thing.
not so much how he plays, but just appearance,
just the look. That's right. He could definitely pass for Joe Burrow's brother at the very least. I think kind of got that Joe Cool kind of look to him, So
nonchalant.
DK also, you were flashing this super chat up. Gave us $5. I was going to say, can we even say what he gave us the $5 not to say? Since
I feel like it's a test. It's a test within a test.
Right. We're not allowed to say a certain wide receiver who is a favorite of Salty's name. Thanks for the super chat, DK. Do your best. We're mostly talking about quarterbacks today. You may hear about that guy on tomorrow's show, though. But so we knew we were going to get to talk to quarterbacks as well as quarterback coach Gino Gaduli and linebackers and linebacker coach Max Bulla after today's practice. But not on the media list that we got yesterday was the name of one Riley Leonard. So we're up there in the interview area, and like it's always like kind of a scramble, like I take multiple recorders because you'll have like one coach over here and then a couple tables over will be, so you're shuffling recorders and stuff like that around. So I've got a recorder rolling on Steve Angeli and then was kind of up there with Max Bulla. And the next thing I know, I turn around and there's Riley Leonard sitting at two tables over. Riley Leonard was not on the list. So that was a great surprise that we got to talk to Riley.
Was it a fire drill?
Not necessarily a fire drill, but for me anyway, it was like, okay, which recorder am I taking? Like, what am I doing? How am I recording this?
There's a song out there called Two Phones.
Okay.
And I just think of it, and it's like a rap song. So I would assume not many have heard of it, but instead I just picture you. Instead, I just keep replacing the word phones with recorders, and the song is going through my head right now, and it's pretty funny.
So we got to talk to Riley Leonard, and I asked him if he went into a lot of detail about the injury. So we're going to start off talking about that. You'll hear some of his thoughts on Mike Denbrock's offense as well. But the injury is the big news right now, right?
Right.
Had the plate in the foot.
How serious is it? Is it serious, not serious? Can he play?
Exactly
Can he not play?
That's right. So he had to have the plate replaced in the foot, the right foot. And I asked him if he knew what caused it. Was there something specific that set it off? How exactly did it happen? Something set it off, or did it just kind of show up?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is no. I kind of just was going through my whole routine. We took a conservative approach on the rehab, so we didn't really push anything at all. It just kind of built up to where the top of that plate kind of had too much pressure on it and caused a stress fracture, which is super rare. Like, it really never happens. So yeah, it caught me by surprise, and then I kind of was on it for a couple weeks, and it was like, holy cow! Like, it's, I mean, your fibia fracture is just broken fibia, so it didn't feel too hot. So we got an X-ray, and it was unanimous. You need to get a bigger plate in there and relieve that stress.
So is it completely pain-free right now? How's it feel?
Yeah, completely pain-free right now. And like you said, like, maybe if I was to test it, it would hurt, but like, I don't think that would be the case. I think right now it's just getting all the swelling out. I talked to Rob today. He said the bone, he's not worried about the bone. Rob Hunt, he said the bone is good, stable, feels good about everything. Just need to get that swelling out in the ligaments. You don't want to stress any ligaments right now because of the surgery and all those complications.
So, Jess, this is not yet rapid fire, but I'll ask you a rapid fire style question. Fill in the blank. Hearing that from Riley Leonard makes you feel blank.
Hearing that from Riley Leonard makes me feel like even more cautious, I think, because it doesn't really sound like it. When I heard that, it basically made it like I came away with, okay, this could just happen again a week later. You know what I mean? Like, last time it came on him and he didn't expect it. He thought everything was good. He was going about practice, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden, it, like he said, it just felt like a compound fracture essentially. And it just sounded like maybe, again, I'm not a doctor, but it just sounded like maybe they did things too tight, or they didn't install the piece that was, that piece that he was talking about, that plate that was too, it wasn't big enough. So it was maybe, trying too hard, creating too much pressure. But again, the part that really concerns me is him feeling completely fine and then going out there and then all of a sudden it being a problem again. Like, that's the last thing you want to hear going forward.
And that's what stood out to me, the fact that at any minute this could become an issue. Now, they put a bigger plate in and, again, he's saying he's feeling fine right now, but the fact that, it's like, it's not like he got stepped on. It's not like he fell down, nothing, nothing, no like freak crazy, incident, like, like other quarterbacks tripping down a stairway or whatever it happens to be, spraining an ankle going down the stairs. Like, it just all of a sudden was there. Oh, shots fired by Salty, calling you an orthopedic surgeon, but he forgot to use the sarcasm emoji. But I agree. Like, to me, the fact that this could just come out of nowhere when he's had these lingering things going on for 6 months, I was much less sort of warmed by the fact that he's feeling pretty good right now than just what you said. The fact that this came out of the blue, and once you get into the season, when you've got this stuff going on in your foot, and the fact that then you can get stepped on, or a 350-pound nose guard falls on it, or sacks you, or whatever like that, man, it gives me even more concern, I think, than anything.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I was getting at. Is just, and he even kind of went on to say, right now he doesn't feel any pain, but he truly doesn't know because he hasn't even gotten it back up to 100% yet. And I get it. You're not just gonna. That's part of rehab, right? Like, you're maybe today you're 50%, the next day you go 60%, etc. So I don't know. And I see kind of what Josh is saying. Like, maybe it should be a good thing, like that.
Right. And I mean, I guess that's how you look at it. Glass half full, glass half empty. But because Josh is saying, hey, he said the plate wasn't big enough. He's overly optimistic from what he heard.
Right.
Maybe that's as simple as that. But it's also why I'm still scratching my head a little bit that the guy's already out there on the field when something freak like this happens, rather than just resting it a little bit longer. I don't know. Maybe that's the dad in me. I don't know. Like, take it easy. Don't rush it. So anyway, he went into some details on just how the ankle is progressing, though.
So the original injury I hurt versus Notre Dame, the high ankle sprain that I got surgery on in January, that ligament and like that's like the really concerning thing, 100% stable.
Okay.
Really, really good. Whenever they went into this past surgery for the stress fracture, they could see that tightrope surgery and how it did with the ligaments in between my fibia and tibia. And that is great. So the risk now is maybe overdoing it. Shoot, I don't know. I don't know much. I just
don't feel
trust
any
them.
pain, nothing.
Nothing. No. Like if you were in my body right now and you walked around, I don't think that you would know you were hurt.
I had this Freaky Friday vision when he said that. Like if you were in my body right now. You ever seen the Freaky Friday movie, Jesse? Are you
Yes.
familiar with what it is? Okay.
Yes.
Just to kind of go back for a second, Tommy says, so you'd rather it hurt him? No, I wouldn't rather it hurt him. I'm just saying the fact that this whole plate thing, the fact that they had to change a plate in his foot came out of nowhere. That's what's obviously, don't want it to be hurting him, but it wasn't hurting him before. And then all of a sudden it was, and it came out of the blue when it was. That's what's concerning. Just that listening to him, this could basically come out of the blue at any time because the guy's got a plate in his foot. But as Josh said, it's a bigger plate, so maybe that takes care of the problem. But we won't. Only time is going to tell, I guess.
Yeah.
In terms of what you just heard from him there, again, you more encouraged or discouraged after hearing that?
I'm more encouraged after hearing that because I thought that the ligament damage was, probably more of a concern. Right. And so hearing him talk about how, the tightrope stuff, they went in, the ligament is strong. They don't have any concerns about that. It's just kind of, I think, naturally how everything else is potentially recovering around the ankle. And that's, I guess, what led to some of the concern in the previous question is it sounds like just the whole ankle area is compromised right now. It's overall just weak. And so while the ligament is, recovering, it seems like other things around it could potentially be, compromised a little bit. And again, I don't know, but I think he's just going to need some time of not really being on it to allow it to fully heal, like the entirety of the ankle, not just, the tightrope or the plate being put in. Like his whole ankle needs to be completely healed.
Yeah. I'm definitely more encouraged hearing that what, caused this whole thing to begin with, the high ankle sprain that he had to have surgeries on and all that stuff is taken care of. The fact that they were able to see that. But again, like this close to having that second surgery for the foot, I still don't really see the advantage in having him out there at all this spring, other than just being a spectator, sit in the film room, do whatever else, anything remotely physical. And he doesn't do a whole lot, but I just still wouldn't want him out there doing anything football related, I don't think, right now for a few more weeks, just to rest it, get off it, like stay off it as much as possible. Because if it's a stress fracture and you've got that foot to help heal it, you don't want to be on it, right?
Right. And it sounded like also, just listening to kind of all of the sound bites from Riley Leonard, it just sounds like he's actually kind of pushing the envelope more so than everyone else. Like he kind of has the FOMO or the fear of missing out potentially, right? It just sounds like he, as a natural competitor, which I totally get, like you never want to feel like you're losing reps potentially with someone you're ultimately still competing with. Like Notre Dame hasn't named a starting quarterback. All of these quarterbacks are still learning the playbook at the same rate, at the same time. You know what I mean? And so it's like naturally being competitive in the athlete, you want to be out there practicing. And if you're not practicing, you want to be as close to practicing as possible, right? Like you're still getting in your reps. And so I don't know where that line is with Riley Leonard of how can he get the right mental reps that he needs to feel like, okay, I'm learning and still developing, even if I can't go 100% through the plays like the rest of the quarterback. So I really think that's what he's struggling with right now. And I think he's kind of, again, listening to the whole thing, it sounds like he was the one kind of telling, like at one point he told the trainers like, hey, like you can trust me that and what I'm saying with how my body is feeling type situation.
Right. I think we'll hear that here in a bit. I think that's one of the cuts that we're going to play here in a second. Josh asking if he's not doing any rollout throws. What I remember, I don't remember seeing many rollout throws, but there was kind of, some stuff where they were doing just like a little bit of a roll and a handoff and those kind of things, so very limited lateral type stuff. But like the team was out there in one of the first couple of periods when they were doing, like, the offenses were out there, first string, second string, third string offenses doing the tempo drill where everybody lines up, all 11, where they go down the field running plays against air and stuff like that. And he was just watching during that. So Angeli was with the first team, Minchie was with the second team, Carr was with the third team, and Riley Leonard was doing none of that. And he's wearing, it's called a Takeo brace. Do you remember Mike Bean? He used to be the Notre Dame baseball athletic trainer. He was pre-Scott Stansberry.
Yes, I do remember.
Surly on the outside, but a good guy on the inside.
Yes.
But Mike Bean invented this Takeo brace, and it's, like a stabilizer kind of brace, and that's the brace that Riley Leonard is wearing out there. So I'd like to know, like, what Mike's bank account is looking like now since he invented this thing, because
he did? Like, that's actually,
he literally invented this brace that Riley Leonard is wearing, and others in sports have been using it now for the last few years since Mike invented it, I guess.
I had no clue. I'll bring it up right now so everyone else can see it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yep. So there it is. Now this one is gray, but the one that Riley is wearing is all black.
Okay.
But that is the Takeo brace. Yes.
Interesting. I wonder how it got the name Takeo, considering
Mike Bean invented it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. USMA 87 says he's negative Nelly, and he thinks QB2 needs to be ready to go. Absolutely. Drop of a hat.
Oh yeah, there's no like 100% considering what we just talked about. That I feel like that ankle is at risk at any point, and until I see Riley Leonard take a few hits, I'm always going to have that hold my breath, I think.
But still much more encouraged, again, based on what he was saying, more encouraged, less worried about the ankle, I think. To me, it's more the foot, because you've got a stress fracture and a plate in there. And that like foreign object in there, and it's tackle football. You're not playing touch football. So that is the bigger concern to me, is the actual foot, much less so than the ankle. But obviously the ankle is where, the whole cause of this stuff came from. Irish Gordianut says it still allows him to Takeo a few reps, but bump. Nicely done.
I like that.
Okay, so next cut. When exactly does Mr. Leonard think he is actually going to be 100%?
I wish I knew the answer to that question too, but like injuries are kind of ambiguous, and they're very like subjective on like how you feeling. You feel good? You want to do this? Is it hurting today? Is it hurting yesterday? Like I don't know. I think a couple weeks is my time frame. Okay. I'm about tired of it, but I don't know. It's not really my decision.
That's kind of what you were talking about there. It just seems like he's in a bit of a rush to get out there, like the FOMO, like you were talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, I mean, to be honest with you, that's every athlete, right? Every athlete's like, I'm good. I'm fine. Like
every athlete worth his salt, right? You want them to want to be out there on the field. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you got to protect the athlete against himself.
The most relatable thing I have to this is when I partially tore my MCL. I sat out for a week. That was really hard, and especially with how that game kind of transpired. And then the next week was our homecoming. And I didn't practice that whole week. So really I sat out almost 2 full weeks, went into the homecoming game with a knee brace on. And I was like, you know what? I'm cool. I'm fine. Like, haven't really practiced. I think I did like a walkthrough with the brace on, did some conditioning with the brace on. I was like, okay, like this is fine. But I just remember the first play of the game, I made a tackle on like a wide receiver screen, and I was the first one to it. I held him up, and then it was a dog pile after that. And of course, everyone was just on my knee underneath the dog pile. And again, that's just one of those situations where like you feel great, but you don't really know until you're out there, right? Like until it's a full rep. And so the last thing you want in the middle of spring ball, where Riley Leonard really hasn't done much to begin with, is him to roll out there, think he's 100%, and then something pop in his foot, and now we're in a bigger issue, right? Like it just doesn't seem like it logistically for, again, a spring practice, it's just not worth him even trying to go 100%, in my opinion. And so Whether or not they allow him, I think that they shouldn't. Like there's just really no reason. As much as he wants to, he'll have plenty of time this summer and next fall.
Well, I mean, and you know, like in your case, you were literally in the midst of a historic season for your school, and so I know you had FOMO in that case. It's like, I cannot miss this.
Yeah. Well, and then like I said, the week before we almost lost to a bad team, and the guy that you talked about yesterday, Shaq Van, now wide receiver coach at Ball State, literally hit a walk-off kickoff
return for
to end the game against it in the middle of like a rainstorm too. Like we should have not won that. Like other team was basically celebrating. They hit the kickoff to us, and he takes it all the way back. We win. And we had no business winning that game. We should have, but we had no business with how we played.
If he's tackled anywhere during that kickoff return, game is over.
Game is over. Yeah. Game is over. And it was on our own home field because we shared fields with them as well. So it was just, the funny part is I'm pretty sure I was running with him down the sideline, like, in my knee brace
as an injured player.
To be doing anything. But that's what I mean. Like that's Riley. That's the nature of being a competitive athlete. Like you just want to, like, you don't, not only like do you not want to not be out there, but just like the relationship, the camaraderie with your teammates, like it's more than yourself. You don't want to feel like you're letting down the team as well. Like you don't want to feel like the team can't develop because Riley Leonard isn't out there.
Decaf, Boobie Miles, nice reference. Do you remember Boobie Miles?
Yeah, Friday Night Lights.
Yeah,
when he was crying after his knee injury in the doctor's office.
Friday Night Lights, the movie or the TV series?
The movie.
I kind of like the movie a little bit better as well, but
it's just so hard because the TV series went so long and there's only one movie.
Yeah, they had to really work to come up with new storylines and keep those, pushing 30 actors looking teenagers. Young. Yeah, it's like how many sophomore years did what's his name, the quarterback? I can't even think of his name now. You know who I'm talking in the TV series. Like how many sophomore years? The heck's his name? Well, you know what I'm talking about. A couple people say in the movie as well. I really liked Billy Bob in the movie. Now I like Coach Taylor in the TV series as well. They were both good, but I have a slight nod to the movie. Mike Winchell. There you go. DK says, where did it go? Always the movie. 1.5 hours and it's over. Can't do weekly shows. Wow. I thought I had short attention.
So this brings up a hot topic. Was Billy Bob Thornton better in Bad News Bears or Friday Night Lights?
I did not like the Bad News Bears remake. I was completely against the Bad News Bears remake. So I gotta go Friday Night Lights.
I think he's a little creepy. I like his character more in the Friday Night Lights movie. Yeah, I don't mind the Bad News Bears, but he plays better in that movie.
Great halftime speech in the final game. Like the rest of your lives, you're going to remember it the rest of your lives, and the rest of your lives is about to happen right now. And, a little out of character for who he was the rest of the movie, I thought, but it was still a great halftime speech.
All right, we need you to really dial it in here and get super serious.
Yes, I mean he is Billy Bob, so. Okay, back to Riley Leonard. He's out there just doing the light throws, not doing anything live. Here's what he said about how he's been able to grow in Mike Denbrock's offense since he suffered this setback.
Yeah, I think it's a little similar to what I did at Duke with the 10 and 11 personnel stuff. I think at the end of the day, I'm missing a total of 10 practices or so, and I'm mixed in with a little bit of that. So I'm just missing the team reps. I feel like with the amount of reps and the amount of games that I've played, I've been able to get those reps in the past. So right now it's just getting mental reps and like trying to be on the sideline and help out any way I can, which is something I'm not accustomed to. Just trying to lead from the sideline, but I got to find new ways to like connect and relate to people off the field.
And that's that last part that you're talking that you were talking about, that connecting with people off the field. That's the tough part, because even though he's out there on the field again, doing the light throws and stuff like that, he's not really in there with all the guys.
Well, I think it's hard because how are you supposed to trust a guy who can't throw you the ball? Like he can tell you, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is, you break here, timing is here, look for the ball here. But until he's actually out there and they do it, and that's what's hard, or not hard, but the most important part about the quarterback position is you lead by example. Your teammates trust you based off of how you perform in practice, how you perform in games, and then more specifically, how you perform under pressure in big time moments in big games. And so until Riley Leonard can do those things, his teammates aren't going to trust him 100%. And that's not a negative thing. It's just not going to happen until he can actually go out there and do it. And so when he talks about, finding new ways to lead, or it's not what he's accustomed to, that goes back to what's so hard is he's just used to being out there with his teammates, and doing what I was talking about, leading by example, playing by example, earning his teammates' trust, connecting with his teammates, through football and on the field. Now he's got to find a way to learn and still be a leader, connect with his offense, do all these things, off to the side essentially, while Angeli or Menchie are the actual guys out there, completing the reps, changing the play, the line of scrimmage, whatever it might be. So it sounds like it's really hard for him to do that. You know what I mean? Just the kind of the internal battle of what I was talking about is what's the line of too much and not too much?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's kind of a fine line right now. And it's an interesting one that he's kind of got to walk. But on the other side, I still think some of that will come, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But again, my ears kind of perked up a little bit hearing the similarities he was talking about in this offense that he's going to be in compared to the offense that he was in at Duke.
That's got
to counter some of the missed time, right? Just for him learning it, right?
Yeah, him talking about 10 and 11 personnel should make everyone's kind of radar buzzers go off, because that's what Mike Denbrock wants to run. And so in terms of, how does that translate over to Notre Dame and Riley Leonard? It's not like Riley Leonard was running 12, 13 personnel a ton out of Duke, and now he's, being introduced to this more spread 10, 11 type personnel offense. No, he's done that before. And this offense, while it's not necessarily tailored around Riley Leonard, it's still an offense that complements Riley Leonard's skills, being a guy who's got a strong arm and the mobility factor, right? If the play or pocket, it breaks down, he has the ability to use his legs to extend plays. And then, of course, there's going to be design plays for Riley Leonard out of 10 and 11 personnel. So it just makes things a little bit easier in the midst of kind of all these things are going on where he can't actually get, full reps in.
Yeah, but again, the injury is going to be, it's there. He's got the injury, whatever it is. And just the fact that he is a quarterback who relies so much on his legs, again, that kind of, I think it's always kind of going to be in the back of our minds that's there, that it's a huge part of his game. And he's got these issues right now. And again, that's why I would be taking it much more slowly. I get all these other factors that we're talking about, but if it were me, I would just be wanting him to take it much more slowly right now. Like I said, forget about the spring, rest for a month or so, stay off it as much as possible, and then shoot toward what happens in June and July. Speaking of which, here's what he said about his confidence in being able to make up for some of this stuff that we're talking about in the summertime, whether it's connections with receivers, learning the offense, playing in the offense, all these different things.
Absolutely do. I think we have a good summer plan written out just on our own without coaches. I don't think coaches aren't allowed to be out there. So I'm going to have to utilize the time in the film room and in the coming out here and getting guys to come in here and get some routes on air, or maybe get the defense out here and get some live reps. That schedule that we're kind of building right now is going to be huge for my progression coming into fall camp.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I felt like all along he can really make up for all this stuff. If he takes it easy, get out there, they'll be doing their typical summer conditioning and all those different things. But I feel like that's really where Riley Leonard and those wide receivers can make some hay, because they're all going to be on campus. They're all going to be in town beyond just the actual workouts and conditioning and stuff like that. I feel like that is where Riley Leonard can make up for some of that lost time that you're talking about, just with those connections with the receivers and the bonds and all that, the leadership and all those different kind of things can really be forged, I think, in the summertime when he's taking the lead on that and getting those guys out there on the field to do all those things that he was talking about.
Yeah, and I think that the summertime is really good for Riley Leonard because there's no expectations. There's no cameras out there. There's no media people out there.
You don't have to do interviews after your workout.
How his ankle feels. Like he can go at his own pace and be like, today I pushed it a little bit. I feel a little bit of tightness. Like maybe I should take it a little bit easier tomorrow. Like Riley Leonard is going to be able to figure out his body and go at his pace this summer. Like, of course, he's still going to be, working out and doing treatments with the athletic staff and all that stuff. But when it comes to his time on his own, where no coaches are out there, just him and his wide receivers, running backs going through different route combinations, different route trees, essentially playing on air. And he even talks about trying to get the DBs out there at some point. It's just that's a good part about it. It's like he can do everything at his own pace this summer and be really responsive to exactly how his body is, feeling, right? And again, there's no pressure or timetable of I need to be back by this, right? He can just start really easing into throwing and all these other things that he needs to do in preparation for fall camp.
Yeah. Then you finish it up. You get your Gatorade. You say, hey, boys, let's go grab some pizza. Let's go get some burgers, whatever it happens to be. I mean, he's got to have the big NIL deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's got to be springing for all that stuff.
I bet those guys can get it like DoorDashed. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, you're right. Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't want it DoorDashed. Like he wants to, he needs to be out there.
That's true.
With the boys. Did you see that Golke, the Oakland basketball player, he has gone from broke student to NIL offers out the yin yang since that win over Kentucky.
Man, that's what's crazy is that's all it takes this day is drilling like 8 threes against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament.
One win and he's not even going to play college basketball anymore. And he's got all these NIL deals coming in. Take advantage of it while you can. Good stuff. I'm glad to hear that. And like completely different, sidetrack, but the fact that coach has been there for 40 years is just amazing.
Yeah.
He's led them through transition from Division II into Division I and to beat Kentucky and essentially chasing John Calipari from Lexington to Fayetteville. Pretty amazing. All right, some final thoughts from Riley Leonard in this segment anyway on running Mike Denbrock's offense.
Love it. Like I said, obviously Jaden Daniels excelled in it last year. I think, I'm not nearly as fast, but I feel like we're both pretty athletic and have a similar-ish game. So I think, I've fit in pretty well with it. Obviously, like I said, it's kind of similar to Duke's offense that I've been running for a couple of years.
Could you hear Riley Leonard's, eyes lighting up? And
see, that's the other part of it too. Like if you're Riley Leonard and last year was he had serious decisions to make on potentially not even playing this season, right? Like he was graded out as a round 1 quarterback. I get it was, maybe early, halfway through the season, but at the point when he got hurt, that's what was going through his mind is I'm potentially revving up for the NFL this draft cycle, right?
He'd be in the conversation with Jaden Daniels and Drake May right now in terms of which of those 3 guys are you taking first,
right? And then to now mix in, okay, that didn't really go how I anticipated. I have a setback. Oh wow, now I have this great opportunity. I can transfer to a really good academic institution. I can transfer to a school that's going to play football at a higher level that is known as, one of the blue bloods in college football. Now, a month later, you got Mike Denbrock saying that he's going to be the offensive coordinator who is coming off a season where his offense put up historic numbers.
Leading a Heisman Trophy winner.
He's got a Heisman Trophy winner and 2 wide receivers that are also going to be all probably taken in the first round of the NFL draft. Again, this just plays into Riley Leonard's FOMO of, I need to be out there. This is his opportunity after everything that kind of the letdown that was of his injury and, potentially being drafted and all those things. And so, again, I get it. It's really hard as a competitive athlete to say, I want to be out there and I want to be learning from the best.
Yeah.
like like he wants his Heisman season, like he saw, okay, if I listen to this guy and I do what he says, why would you not take full advantage of that? Like why can't I be the guy out there getting these reps? And so again, it just goes back to this just layers and layers of FOMO for like different reasonings, really.
I mean, because literally, like you could just see the gleam in his eye when he was talking about this, and you could hear just the way his voice changed when he was talking about it. And like, he's really excited about playing in this offense. And I think everybody should be very excited about that. But it just, again, like the fact that he's got these unfortunate injuries and stuff going on, that's the thing. And Joe says he was worried about, Riley Leonard since he announced he was transferring, basically. And it's like, it's not going to go away anytime soon. Like, I think virtually every time the guy gets hit, everyone's going to kind of hold their breath all season. But as Rabid Nile Chihuahua says, we can be worried, but it is what it is. We have 3 good backups. Let's play already. I mean, it's all you can do, right?
I forgot to tell you, there's this house. Speaking of Rabid Nile Chihuahuas, I have basically a pure Chihuahua and a Chihuahua mix. I think everyone pretty much knows that by now, but I'm not kidding you. There is a house maybe a block and a half away, like not even a quarter mile. And they have dogs that look just like Henry, my dog. And so we were walking by I'm not kidding you, like the exact same colors, the exact same mix. And so I was walking by and I was like, we have a dog just like this. Can you tell me what breed he is? Like, we don't, we adopted him, whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, this is a Fox Terrier Chihuahua. So I now know what breed of dog
Interesting.
my Henry is.
Did they intentionally breed him like that, or was it?
He was older than my dog. Like you could see the age in his face. So, but they're like we call them the Chihuahua farm because there's like 5 to 10 Chihuahuas in that, or mixes of Chihuahuas in that house. So your guess is just as good as mine.
Fox Terrier Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why his bark is so dang annoying.
Does he ever want to go to your backyard and like dig holes and chase ground squirrels and stuff like that?
My 2 dogs are in a war with the squirrel in the backyard, but they don't dig holes or anything. They just chase after the squirrel.
That's good. Going back to what we were talking about before, Johnny Action, original Bad News Bears was excellent. It was, and it's just a simpler time. I mean, like you could definitely not make a movie like that today. There was so much political incorrectness in that movie, and the fact that kids were saying, like the Tanner Boyle character alone, the things that Tanner Boyle was saying in that movie. And then you swing to the other side. Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose. Coach Taylor. Thank you, Decaf. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
We have not only a little bit more Riley Leonard in rapid fire, we'll have some Steve Angeli comments coming up here as well. A little peanut butter and jelly time after practice today. So we've been talking about Riley Leonard. The Blue Gold game is a week from Saturday, about a week and a half away from right now. Will Riley Leonard be playing in it?
I don't know. I feel like if the Blue and Gold game was like a real game, like in the season, it would be like a 50-50 call.
Yeah.
However, because it's like the Blue and Gold game, I don't know if we're going to get to that point.
Okay, Jess, scale of 1 to 10, what chance do you give him to play in the Blue Gold game?
0 out of 10. I think it's hilarious though that he literally would not say I'm not playing. Like he just would not give it up. Like
and that pause to me was like, I really want to, but I doubt they're going to let me.
But they're not going to let me. Like I would love to do it out there, but it was so funny because like again he was like and then he was like, well, if the Blue Gold game was week 1, I would probably be out there, if push came to shove. But since this is only, the spring game, I'd say it's like a 50-50 chance. Like, no, dude, there's no way you are playing. And it feeds back into everything we've talked about. Like, he he can't really take it. Like, he wants to be out there.
He is just
so bad.
itching to be out there.
But I
on the
guess
field.
that's what I would want. Like, I wouldn't want my quarterback being like, oh yeah, I'm hurt. So I guess I could just take the rest of, like, that's the good part that's coming out of this is you want a quarterback like this.
I love the fact that he is so obviously enthusiastic about everything, about wanting to play, about competing, about, wanting to be with his teammates more and bond with his teammates more, about playing in Mike Denbrock's offense and the fact that he thinks, that he can light up the scoreboard in this offense and the whole thing. That's all awesome, but I don't want to see it in April. I want to see it in August. Like,
that they've told him that he's not playing.
Put him in hibernation for another month.
You know that they have told him he's not playing, but he doesn't want to be the guy to say, I'm not playing.
He will not admit it. That's right. He is not going to go that far. Commitment he's not willing to make. Okay, so a guy who we are going to see in the blue gold game, Steve Angeli. And here he is discussing what helped to take him to the next level this past season.
Definitely say Coach Graduli coming in and, furthering my development. And, I say it every time that I'm able to say it. Sam Hartman played a big role, kind of being under his wing for a year, developing that relationship with him. He taught me a lot. Like I've said before, he's played a lot of ball. So asking him all those questions, getting to know him on a personal level and how he carries himself on and especially off the field, his process definitely helped me and just kind of learning those little secrets. All went into the preparation that I kind of took the mindset every day of practice. Like I'm preparing like the starter for the when my time came, it wasn't any different.
By the way, Jess, you see that Angeli photo that I was using there? Do you see a little bit of that Joe Burrow I was talking about?
I do see some of the Joe Burrow you were talking about.
I know. Okay, so you hear him giving all that credit to Sam Hartman. So where do you rank that when you apply it to the overall impact that you really want someone like Riley Leonard and what he needs to have this year in terms of, okay, you brought this guy in, it goes beyond, I think, just what he does on the field, doesn't it, when you bring a guy like that in?
Yeah, and I guess before we get 100% of that, I think it was really cool that he led with Gino Guidugli as well, because that is something that we've talked about consistently of, Notre Dame developing quarterbacks. And so we always, talked about, hey, they need this role. They need someone to actually be dedicated to this. And so to hear an actual player say, yeah, like that, having someone like that is really good. And so that's not just Steve Angeli, like that's across the whole quarterback room. But to get back into your original question, I do think that that's part of the whole package or part of the whole equation when you bring in something like Riley Leonard. Like, of course, the expectation is to be QB1, but it's also to be a mentor at the same time. Like that is the part of being a really good player at times, is also mentoring the young players. Do you really care about the development of everyone else around you, or are you ultimately just in it for yourself? Because as long as Riley Leonard is healthy, he is going to be the starting quarterback in every single game this season, right? Mm-hmm. And so what can you do to better the program for when you leave and show kind of your gratefulness for the opportunity, right? And so you hope that you get fortunate on having a guy with the mindset like that. Like there are some guys who transfer in and it's about themselves and the NIL money, right? Like, but you hope to be, again, the total package of not only is he here to be the starting quarterback, but he's here to make everyone else around him better as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, again, when you look at the personality of a Sam Hartman who they brought in, when you look at the personality of Riley Leonard, and you can even say it, I think, about Jack Cohn going back to the third transfer quarterback. Those are the kind of personalities that they have. And I don't think that they would bring him in if they didn't think that was going to be part of the deal. But I do. I mean, I think that weighs high, that you're not just going to have a guy who comes in and it's all about himself. I think that this needs to be part of the deal. Like that quarterback room, those guys are so tight. And obviously, there can be only one, right? Because like you said, unless barring injury, Riley Leonard's going to start all the games next year. But he's also got to be able to help those other guys, because of the experience that they lack, help them get ready so that when he's gone, they can ultimately one day be the guy. Gordian Knott says he loves almost all breeds, but probably will never own anything with even a dash of Chihuahua. What do you say about that, Jess?
I had to pull up these comments. Growing up, I never thought I would be a small dog person, but here I am with two dogs under 10 pounds, basically, right? And so I would say don't hate it until you try it. I love my small dogs. You've been around them. They're not as bad as what you would think. They're really
I will say
fun,
this,
and they're
because
pretty loving and they're pretty like entertaining to watch. especially.
Henry's part Chihuahua, Scooby is full Chihuahua, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Henry is much more chill, I think, than the full Chihuahua.
Well, also
He
you got to
still
realize
yaps a little bit, but a lot of his yapping,
the full Chihuahua is like half the age too. He's still a little puppy, so he's he's growing into his
young and
little
spry
ornery behavior. Yeah, but what I was getting at is I think you probably like when you first saw that those dogs were coming over, you're like, oh my goodness, but like they're not as crazy or rabid as what you think, and they're pretty entertaining. Yeah, they can be annoying, but I mean any dog can be annoying.
Right. Okay, so Steve Angeli also discussed where he's made the most physical improvement since last season.
I think overall, just like my feet and footwork, I think I've been able to move faster throughout my reads. Having a lot more strength, developing more strength from Coach Landau, especially in the weight room, has helped me get more velocity on the ball, being able to push up in the pocket, make more plays with my legs. So overall, just athleticism with him, and just overall feeling better.
And then when your feet are right, are you more accurate?
100%. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, it always goes like that. When you miss a throw, you're like, man, my feet were messed up, my base wasn't good. So having a strong base and good feet, definitely set you up for success.
And when it comes to making corrections, what? TD4ND saying Angeli is half Chihuahua. Man, I don't know about that. Come on. Do you think correcting the footwork is easier than when you get into, arm slots and all that different kind of stuff?
I do, because like Patrick Mahomes makes all the arm slot stuff look crazy. Like not everyone can throw the ball like that at all.
He throws in different slots without even having to think about it. Basically.
What I would say is like I'm going to equate this to playing baseball, I think, because I was never a person who had like a really good consistent throwing motion. Like I found a way to get the ball across the diamond, right? But like I didn't have tremendous arm strength, right? I can say that. But I felt like the things that really helped me was establishing good footwork, gaining ground towards first base as I'm fielding the ball, just like little things that can kind of, because I felt like the throwing motion thing is like guys who throw really well are guys who are probably consistently throwing the same way for 10, 15 years, right? And so that becomes muscle memory, like things that you do for, however many hours, 2,000, 4,000 hours, like, or repetitions, like that becomes muscle memory, right? So like, I think at a certain point, you've really kind of maxed out what your arm slot is to a degree, right? And so the way I start looking at it again is how can I do things to provide power or extra zip to how I'm already throwing the ball? And so when you think about Steve Angeli, I think if he can focus on, okay, how do I get my footwork into like a power triangle, right? Like where am I most balanced in my hips where I can really get into the ball and make more accurate passes? Again, that's kind of how I think about it, is what mechanics can he do to get the ball across the diamond or the field just a little bit better, knowing that, again, that his arm slot and arm motion is what it is. Like you're not going to tweak those things,
right?
Middle of spring, middle of season, maybe a little bit in the off season, but like, again, it primarily is what it is. So what can you do with footwork? What can you do with, your eyes, like the other stuff to kind of make the other part better?
Right. As long as you have a repeatable motion with the arm, but you're seeing the inaccuracies, you look at the feet, because the throwing starts with the feet, where your stride is, how all those things that you're talking about, turning your hips, all these different things, whether you're throwing a football or a baseball, it starts with your feet. And I think that, having, went through some of the stuff that you're talking about, I think it is much easier to work on correcting the feet than when you start getting into the arm slots like you're talking about. Because like you go back to a guy like Brandon Wimbush, who, all of a sudden started like yips and, couldn't complete a short pass. And it was all, like, okay, can we correct this? And, he's working with the throwing coach and doing all these different things. It is just so hard, especially once you get into the season, because of the muscle memory stuff that you talked about, to
it's the last thing you
try
want
to change
about.
That kind
you
of
don't
thing.
want to be thinking about your throwing.
You don't want, and that's it. Not only do you not want to, you can't think about it as well, because once you're
so many other things going on,
you lose. Yeah, that's right. If you're thinking about where your arm slot needs to be, then you're going to lose, reading a safety or reading a linebacker or whatever it happens to be.
Like, and that just means you're going to get, like, honestly, the more you think, the more likely they are that you're going to get hurt or it's going to be a bad play. Like, I'm just being 100% honest. Like, when you have other things, outside factors that you are supposed to, at that point, have kind of mastered or down, like stuff that you should no longer be thinking about, like, it's only just going to set you back.
Correct.
Small tidbit here. I was listening to the Cubs game the other day. Dansby Swanson doesn't swing a bat or take ground balls like the entire offseason.
Really?
He basically said, like I during the season, or like once spring training comes and like he really ramps it up. In the offseason, he enjoys that time off of just kind of not overdoing it, right? Like not over pressing, being able to walk away, come back refreshed. I thought it was interesting to hear. Like, I've never heard someone kind of take that approach before. And then I was listening, I guess Nico Horner does a lot of like now VR swings. So instead of hitting off the tee, he'll put on like the VR goggles and take like dry swings doing that. Just things to take, the load or the pressure off the body during the off season. I just thought that was really cool because it kind of goes into, I thought, a little bit what we were talking about with Angeli there.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Rabid Nile Chihuahua, going back to the dog conversation, he says Angeli strikes him more as a lab. That's kind of what I was thinking as well.
Yeah.
Much more lab than yapper dog. So
DK brings a very good point here. That saga was
got way too deep. DK got way too deep in Wimbush's head. This is true. Yep, very unfortunate. And that can happen too, because once you start thinking about, because I remember, again, I don't want to make this all about you and your baseball and stuff like that, but we're talking about mechanical stuff. Like when you were young, you threw a little bit odd, but then this coach at a, what was supposed to be, what everyone thinks is like the best little league in town, corrected it, and it only ultimately made it worse in the long run.
Yeah.
And then it was like trying to correct some of that stuff. And that can happen too. You start getting multiple voices and like this guy thinks, he's got the answer. This guy.
I think at some point you just kind of have to stick to what your body naturally is telling you. Cause you watch, and I get it. These are professional baseball players, but watch some of these MLB guys. Like not everyone throws orthodox across the diamond, right? Like how you would teach, from the start to fit like, and I think that was kind of like, that's what so many people get caught up in is we all don't have to throw the same way. We all don't have to have the same mechanics. There's still natural fluidity, whether you're throwing a football, whether you're throwing a baseball, that your body, when you start growing up, has told you like, this is what you're going to do to get the most power or like what kind of fits your body, right? Because we're not all the same.
Yeah. Do you remember Brett Lilly, who played Notre Dame baseball?
Yeah, center fielder, hit by pitch every game.
Well, he wasn't a center fielder. He started off as a middle infielder, but at least for 1 year, remember they moved him over to third base.
Yeah.
And when he was playing middle infield, he was just like a regular over-the-top thrower. But when he went over to third base, I think because the throw was a little bit longer.
Got to get that ball out.
Remember, he started throwing it sidearm over there. And again, it's just about what gets it done,
And that's kind of where I got to the point.
As long as it gets there. Yeah.
I just had to do what would get the job done.
Yep. All right. So Iowa women's basketball is going to hold a celebration Wednesday night to celebrate their basketball team finishing as national runner-up. Caitlin Clark and the team are going to be there to be recognized. So Brianna Turner, who was a two-time runner-up when she was here at Notre Dame with Muffet McGraw, tweeted, "Respectfully, I'm confused. Is this what the runner-up typically does now? Haven't seen this before, but kudos to them for publicly honoring all that they've accomplished this season." So do you buy or sell Iowa celebrating its runner-up finish in the way that they're going to do? They're going to Phil Carver Hawkeye.
I sell it as a runner-up celebration. I buy it as a Caitlin Clark celebration and everything else that it has allowed this team, this community, this fan base to accomplish in the ride that they've been on the last two seasons. I don't think you promote it, but that's the hard part is you can't promote it as just one player because it's still a team sport.
Right.
And so you're kind of stuck of, well, we can't call it a Caitlin Clark celebration, but also it probably doesn't sound great to call it a runner-up celebration, right? So like I get it.
And that's what I think this is. I think more than anything, this is your last chance to celebrate arguably the biggest. I mean, you can argue, she's one of the, again, we tried to retire the GOAT conversation. She is one of the best women's basketball players ever. And I think more than anything, they're celebrating the fact her career is done, and they want one last chance to kind of
it's the bow.
Honor her. Yeah, like put a bow on top, still honor a great season, back-to-back national runner-up finishes. But like you said, you can't just say, well, this is all about Caitlin Clark. So it's, celebration to honor the team, because it was still a great season. Yeah, Rabbit Nile, you're right. I can't imagine Michael Jordan celebrating coming in second. You're right. They don't do parades, for finishing second. But at the same time, it's not an issue that Michael Jordan or the Bulls had to deal with once he hit his prime. They were always winning, as long as he was in a Bulls uniform. But I think, again, I think that you literally have the biggest star, maybe the biggest star in women's college basketball history. And I think it is as much about sort of one last hurrah for Caitlin Clark as it is for anything. Yeah.
People are going to be crying. Like, it's going to be emotional, like the people who would, like, again, like, sports go beyond so much of the player. Like, think of all the people that Caitlin Clark has potentially touched or given inspiration to, or, some of that stuff that, again, goes more unnoticed outside of the stat box.
Yeah. And I mean, TD4ND, great point as well. Last time they'll celebrate for a while. I mean, literally, unless all of a sudden, because, again, it was Caitlin Clark and, 4 pretty good college basketball players, but none of them were close to the caliber of Caitlin Clark. So unless Lisa Bluter all of a sudden, unless this gives her recruiting a serious uptick, then I think that, this is going to be the last chance that Iowa women's basketball has a chance to celebrate anything for a long time. DK is already, he's like, off the clock. Okay, the season's over. We can stop talking about women's basketball now. He's just been sitting here, all season, just putting up with the women's basketball talk, even though record audiences. Speaking of which, fill in the blank. It's blank that for the first time ever, the women's basketball championship game had better viewership than the men's championship game after Iowa, South Carolina drew about 4 million more viewers than last night's UConn-Purdue men's game.
It's great. It's fantastic. I mean, it goes back to exactly why I believe Caitlin Clark and Iowa deserve that celebration, is just look at what she did, her impacts for Iowa, her impacts on college women's basketball. And furthermore, like, I was listening, like, and I guess I think the better word is actually it's no surprise. I'm gonna amend my answer. It's no surprise because, watching the women's game compared to the men's game, and then today it really hit home. I was listening to this podcast where of these 2 guys who play for the Knicks together. I think I brought this up or talked to you about it before. They said that they preferred to watch the women's game than the men's right now, just because the quality is better, their play is better, and they quite literally said they haven't watched it a second of the men's tournament because they think that the men's game isn't nearly as good as where the women's is. And so I'm going to say it's no surprise for that reason. I felt like the women's tournament put out better quality, better product. Really, the only reason why we love the men's tournament is because of upsets, right? Like, that's
upsets and brackets.
That's the brackets. That's really, if you want to look at actual quality of play over the last 10 years, there's no surprise that the women's game has slowly kind of made this uphill gain on the men's game, and now surpassed them.
Yeah, a lot of great points, and you're exactly right. I said going into the tournament when we talked about interest in the women's game compared to the men's, the women's game had like the biggest star, and they had a handful of other stars as well. And they obviously had a great team to go along with it in South Carolina, who capped the whole thing off with a perfect season. As Johnny Action says, it's a pure form of the sport, and that's a fact. And, look, it's still like 18.5 million viewers. So is everybody watching women's college basketball? No. But more people are watching it now than ever. And, I had always, for a long time, just kind of taken the stance of you're either a women's basketball fan or you're not. But that was really disproved this year, and it really started last year as well with the fact that they set that record in the championship game. But each of the last 3 games Caitlin Clark played in, they set a new viewership record. And the women's game had the biggest star in the game. And when you look at that comment about a pure form, fundamentally, I think the women's game has become better than the men's college game right now. Obviously, you don't have the dunks and stuff like that. And, like people who are really into the men's game, like would much rather see, the dunks than all the layups and 3-point shots and stuff like that. But it's just a more fundamental game because of the fact that the women still have the players staying together for 4 years and the men don't. I think that by and large is why the men's game has become a little bit, to me, even harder to watch, because you don't have players staying together. And the fact that you have players staying for 4 years in college basketball, I mean, that's how Caitlin Clark became the star and this meteor that she became because of last year's national championship and just swooped it all through this season. James says 4 quarters in women's basketball is pathetic. I completely disagree with that. Remember, men's college basketball is the only level of basketball that only plays halves, that's not playing quarters. And everybody else is playing quarters. I think game flow is tons better in the women's game than it is in the men's game because of the quarters. I love the quarters. And I wasn't really sure how I would feel when they changed it over and doing games and stuff like that. I love quarters compared to halves. We take it any day of the week. And the other, part of this, Joe says they need to change the time of the men's game, and D-Hawk 9:42 tip-off for a championship. It is ridiculous. The latest they should be, and I know they want to get the West Coast viewership and all that stuff. They really, the latest they should be tipping off is 9:00. There's no reason tipping off that much after 9:00 on a Monday night.
I think you could get away with 8:15.
I think so too, or at least 8:30, even 8:45 would help out quite a bit. Because 8:45 is 5:45 on the West Coast.
Still in the happy hour area.
John went to bed at halftime. That is half of the game longer than I made it. So, did not last. Okay. Now, Ian Eagle, the lead play-by-play announcer for the Final Four after Jim Nantz stepped aside from that role last year. What did you think of Ian Eagle as the lead play-by-play man for CBS and in the men's March Madness this season?
Yeah, so I have to say I based this off of really some of the games I caught him in the earlier rounds and around the Final Four because I didn't watch the championship, So, but I felt like in the games I did watch, it didn't felt like it was missing a beat, right? Or that I was like, oh man, I really wish I had Jim Nantz instead of Ian Eagle. I love Ian Eagle, outside of basketball. I like the work he does for football. I think he has a really good voice. And so I thought that he stepped into the role very seamlessly, and the transition was unnoticeable, which is exactly what you kind of want when you're replacing someone like Jim Nantz.
Yeah. I think that he's really good with Raft because they've done a lot of NBA games together in the past. They
know each other.
Chemistry.
He knows when to let Raft do his thing.
Right. The only one, and again, this is just like play-by-play guy, one annoyance with Ian Eagle, because I do think he's really good. I don't think I'm not as in on Ian Eagle as like the East Coast guys, because that's where he, works NBA and all that. The one thing that annoys me is that when a guy shoots a 3-pointer, he doesn't say 3-pointer or, takes a three, whatever. He always calls it a jumper or a jump shot. And I realize technically it is a jump shot because you're, jump shot form and all that stuff. But to me, a 3 is a 3. You've got to say 3. And he always calls it jumper. And that's the only thing that annoys me.
You have to, distinguish between I get it, they're TV, but I don't know.
You've got to let people know that it's a 3-pointer.
Yeah. What if his foot's on the line? You don't know.
Right. Johnny Action says he finds it amazing how a freshman player from USC, and of course he's talking about Juju Watkins, was promoted by Disney ESPN, but one from Notre Dame was a first-team All-American, was not. And I don't feel like I heard a lot about Juju Watkins this year. And maybe it's just because she's in Los Angeles and you've got that
Bigger market
and all that stuff. I heard a lot about her, but you
plays
just,
at the same school
nationally,
as
Ronnie
James.
If there was a game on, the ESPN people would always rave about Hannah Hidalgo, during the game and stuff like that. But outside of the games, I didn't hear nearly as much Hidalgo hype.
I feel like when Juju Watkins blew up for whatever that game was in the beginning of the season, what was it, like 50, 60 points or something? And then she got all kinds of, publicity. She's in the LA market. You know what I mean? It just felt like that is what put her over the top. She had that, if Hannah Hidalgo dropped 60 as a 5-foot whatever guard, I think that puts her on the map a little bit more.
Right. Love to see a head-to-head matchup. That would be fun.
That'd be fun. Like an early game next season.
Yeah. They used to play at the start of the season quite a bit, back in the early 2000s. And then that series kind of went away, but USC women weren't quite as good as Notre Dame back then. But now, they're both going to be top 10 going into next season. That would be a lot of fun to see Notre Dame and USC and Hidalgo and Watkins in a head-to-head.
Well, the thing that would be cool about it is, if you did a game in LA, tons of Notre Dame people would show up.
Right.
Just because of the long-standing football rivalry that's already there.
Yep. I agree. Everyone upset at the lack of Hidalgo coverage. All right, so there's been a rash of starting pitchers already getting injured at the start of Major League Baseball season. Yeah, I saw that. Even another one today. So there's some people who are blaming the pitch clock for this phenomena, I guess, rash of injuries, whatever you want to call it. Do you buy or sell the pitch clock as the culprit?
I listened to a really good interview with Justin Verlander, and this is kind of what stemmed me to start thinking about it. And what Verlander got into is, back in 2016, they started tweaking with the ball a little bit, right? Basically the ball started flying a little bit more. And so he was basically alluding to, pitches that you would just try to get weak contact from are now kind of flying out of the ballpark. And so as a pitcher, naturally, you start, tweaking with stuff because you can no longer pitch in those areas and expect that kind of contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he went on to say, I'm not blaming the ball. We're all playing with the same ball. So at the end of the day, it's equally competitive, right? But I would sell it in terms of it being the primary cause. I think it's more of a cocktail of reasons. I think, the recent phenomenon with analytics plays a part in it. Just all these different, the drive line, how all these guys in the offseason go and, they're hooked up to all these sensors and they're, everything is analyzed, right?
They're looking for the perfect arm slot to throw 100 miles an hour.
And that leads into my next thing is it's no longer cool to throw 90, 91, 92. Everyone's got to throw 100 miles per hour, right?
Yes.
And so if you're naturally throwing 90, 91, 92, what makes you think artificially throwing, 100 miles per hour is ultimately, good for your arm? And then you start throwing in, spin now. Guys are spinning the ball a lot more. And what's something I thought about too is, and again, this is maybe I'd like your input here too. Guys can't use quite as much sticky stuff anymore, right? They really have to. Yeah. There's no more artificial spinning the ball. These guys have to create their own.
All got to come from their torque.
So I think that plays into it as well. And then I do think the pitch clock, when you add in, everything else I just talked about, guys kind of throwing unnaturally, trying to get up to 100 miles per hour. Guys trying to spin the ball more than ever. Now you have a shorter amount of time when you're trying to spin the ball and throw the ball as hard as you can. It's all kind of, I think, amassing into this one big problem. And so I don't think it's just the pitch clock, but the pitch clock has a role in it at the end of the day.
When Nolan Ryan used to hit 100 miles an hour on the radar gun back in the 70s and 80s, it was 100 miles an hour. There were very few guys who could top 100 miles an hour on the gun. And it was, so it was a rarity. But now the rarity is guys who can't hit 100 miles an hour because that's all these guys are doing, being brought up. And there's the fixation with that velocity and the spin rates and just everything else that you're talking about, I think that is the biggest thing. Could the pitch clock factor in there to some extent? Maybe, because of the fact that you're throwing, pitches in a quicker succession than you would if you had a little bit more time, but you still got to throw a pitch. A pitch is a pitch, whether you're throwing it 20 seconds apart or 45 seconds apart. So
I don't think getting rest time in between games, and guys now pitch counts are way less than they used to be. So like, even though you might be throwing them a little bit, faster, overall you're not throwing as many pitches as a starting pitcher anymore. So I really don't understand that argument.
Well, that's the thing too, is guys are coming out. Starting pitchers are almost used just like a long-term reliever anymore. Like it used to be, you would look, when they would post the games and who the starting pitchers were that day, you would base a great deal of your decision if you're trying to say who's going to win this game. Like you were basing a great deal of your decision on who the starting pitcher was.
They were going to pitch 85% of the game.
Yeah, but now
maybe even 100.
But now they get through the fifth inning, and that's pretty much it. So like they might be showing or throwing pitches in quicker succession, but overall they're not throwing any more pitches over the entirety of a season than they used to pitch. So I don't think that you can blame the clock for that. I think it is much more about, like you've got the fixation on velocity combined with the torque that you're talking about. And then like these relievers as well, like you look at the Royals bullpen when they made their 2 World Series runs. And that's kind of, I'm not putting it all on them or even crediting them. That was really when this go to the bullpen quicker really started to come into fashion. The Royals shortened the game by the fact that they had 3 guys who
7,
could
8,
all
9.
be closers, and they bring them in succession, 7, 8, 9. That's right. They had their roles, and it was like boom, 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 but they were pitching quite a bit. They were, like anytime the Royals had the lead, they were going to those guys.
I think D-Hawk brings a great point up here. Maddox never threw harder than 88 and was the best pitcher in the game. It's ego. Batter doesn't flinch at 100 miles per hour. And it's like every batter can hit 100 these days. It doesn't matter. Like everyone's got the bat speed to hit 100 miles per hour. It's all about stuff. And I was telling you this yesterday. Like, look at Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs. He's never thrown over 90 miles per hour. He has a wicked changeup, and he's pitched in the MLB for like 10 straight years and never had an elbow issue. He just sticks to what he's good at, hitting locations, getting enough movement off of his fastball. And I think what you have to look at as pitchers, the big thing is your deceptiveness. Like your fastball and changeup should look the exact same until the last second, and then it splits off. Like that's what the good pitchers are good at, is deceiving their pitches. Like that is Kyle Hendricks right there. Like you think you're getting a fastball at 88, and then all of a sudden it runs 6 inches off the plate, and it's a changeup.
Everything comes out of the same arm slot, but it's 3 different pitches that are going to do 3 different things. That's right. All right. DK said, is baseball better to watch or talk about? I mean, lately probably talking about it, but Jesse is already in big time on the Cubs. Are you going to have your heart broken again? Are they going to blow another lead?
Central's going to be tough this season. I think the Central you might see 3 teams come out of the Central this season. I think the Cubs are good. The Reds are good. And then I think the Pirates finally have some starting pitching to kind of match some of that talent that they have. And when they call up what's his name? Skeens, they're going to be tough. They're going to have really good. I think the Central, for being kind of mediocre or bad the last, 5 years or so, I think you're going to see a much improved. Like, I think every team is going to be above 500 in the Central this season. I think you're going to see 3 teams come out of that division.
Not in the AL Central, though. Yep. John up on the Buccos. Pirates in first place right now. Yep.
Well, they did this last year. That's the thing. They started hot. Can they just continue it? We'll see. Yep. That's what's fun about baseball. You get 162 games, baby. Like, there's no like anomaly when you play 162 games. You know what I mean? Like everything is naturally going to, regulate itself. While the Cubs probably shouldn't have lost last night, the way I look at it is they're probably going to win a game at some point this season that they didn't deserve to win. So it'll all balance out.
I've got to get into baseball mode. I've got my baseball package on the TV. I've got to start getting in there.
You were talking though. You're not a big, baseball doesn't feel baseball until like May for you. I feel like it's definitely not March, and I feel like
sure.
April's kind of knocking on the door a little bit. But once you get into like the beginning of May, that's baseball season.
Yep.
People don't realize how much you enjoy baseball.
I do. Love baseball.
That's what I mean.
It's just, like especially for this show, it's not the high end of the totem pole. Have you seen much of Logan Webb? I don't think I've seen much of Logan Webb. Have you seen much of him? Giants pitcher Brent's asking.
I bet on him at some point this season, but I don't know if I can't remember if I've actually sat down and watched him.
I'll have to keep my eye out for him, and I'll give you some thoughts the next time I see him. Do the Cubs play the Giants anytime soon?
I
guess the good part about that is it doesn't matter. I've got my package. I will. I'll make a point to find out when Logan Webb pitches next, and I will. I will see that if I can give you some thoughts on him. We went to, what is that place called? Is it AT&T? What do they call the ballpark out there?
Oh,
in San Francisco. I can't even think of it off the top of my head now.
I should know it. I can see it over in left field.
Yeah.
Oracle Park.
It's Oracle now. Yeah. I've actually been to Candlestick before back in the day when I lived out there in Monterey for a year. We went to Candlestick a few different times and saw the Giants play. We actually saw them play Barry Bonds and the Pirates once before, Barry Bonds went to San Francisco, and we also saw him play. It was kind of the tail end. It was 88, so it was the year the Mets lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS. We saw the Mets play out there. I think David Cohn started the game that at the old Stick in the game that we went to. Always freezing at Candlestick Park out there. That wind coming off the bay.
I like when we went to that Giants game, what was probably, I want to say...
About 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah, I was going to say 7 or 8 years ago. But one of my favorite features about that ballpark is the usher. I can't speak for the rest of the stadium, but in the lower bowl, the ushers did not let you walk down while action was going on in the game.
Right.
You had to wait in between innings or, there had to be a stoppage in the game. I love that. I wish every freaking stadium, arena, ballpark could implement that. I know it's harder because of, different pace of games and everything, but, it's just people are paying a good price to be there. And the last thing you want is, the jabroni in your aisle who's got 5 kids and he's up and down in front of you. And you got to get up every time. And now you're blocking people behind you, and they got to get out of the aisle. That's usually, I always buy aisle seats these days. So like when someone gets out, I just take one step. I get out, they're in the aisle, everyone leaves. But I just hate that stuff because I'm paying to be there. I'm not paying for you to be standing up and trotting your family across me the entire time.
Right. Have the courtesy. Do it between innings, jabronis. That's right. Don't be a jabroni. All right. We will end it with that. Glad to have you here as always. Decaf wants you to stop talking about.
I know Vince is that guy. I know Vince is that guy.
Vince don't care. Vince don't care about nothing. All right, we'll end it with that. Hit the like button if you would, and of course, subscribe, rate, review, and play your podcast. We will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk. Thanks, Joe.